is not fear mongering. They're trying to make it sound like it's fear mongering. This is a real dangerous thing.
Ted, thank you for coming, sir. I appreciate you. I've been working with you a lot on your Ted Hill show on YouTube, and I'll put a link up for that. But I want to talk to you specifically about 3 bills today. So we have the fentanyl bill, we have the school security bill, and we have the digital centralized currency bill. That's what we're going to talk about today. If you could we just start off with the fentanyl bill?
Fentanyl bill is the big one. A lot of attention on that thing. Right now, I have 35 co-sponsors. That's the most co-sponsors anybody's ever seen on a bill. But it's very controversial because it did make it last session. People really want this through. It's interesting now because we're getting pushback from a certain group that is, I will say, is soft on crime, and they don't like the law enforcement piece. The fentanyl bill is decisive. It's aggressive. That's how you go after criminals. You don't appease criminals. You don't give them leeway. You don't give them off-ramps. You go after them. And this bill is about that. It's about decisive deterrence. And that's what I like about it. It's very clear. Mandatory sentences, very clear what the rules are. And this is not fear-mongering. They're trying to make it sound like it's fear-mongering. This is a real dangerous thing. This fentanyl thing is the biggest threat we've faced in this country from the drug side. It's not a nuisance. It is devastating. It's devastating families. It's devastating communities. It's bad for everybody. Everybody's vulnerable. And that's the part I want to reiterate when it says, oh, you're fear-mongering. No, we are not. And they're going to pick on me, say, hey, this is Ted Hill's bill. Well, there's a bunch of other people involved. We don't have 35 people behind me right now co-sponsoring that are fear-mongering. 85% of people in the state want to fix this. They want this fixed. I don't want it to get diluted and distracted, saying, oh, it's fear-mongering. Oh, we're going to get innocent people. There are no innocent traffickers under this rule that we have in this bill. You're not going to walk around with 250 pills. You go, oh, sorry, I didn't know what I was doing. No, we're going to hammer them. We're going to go after these traffickers, and we're going to go after anybody who causes a death. This is part of the bill also. Again, if anybody who is a dealer that deals this fentanyl and that person dies, that's murder. This is serious stuff. And it works. And I used the example when we talked before when I went down to California and I did that ride-along and talk to the cops and see what happens. It says that California has no teeth in their bills. Nothing happens until the federal DA steps in, and then things happen. When the DEA comes in and says, 10 years if we catch you here, they roll over and cave. We can fix this if we get decisive, and we need to be strong on this. The police want this. Let's get it across the line.
And again, the emphasis of this bill, and I talked to you about it briefly a couple months back, the emphasis of this bill is let's make mandatory minimums for fentanyl. We have mandatory minimums for other drugs. This is not like a new or novel punishment or part of the legal system. We have mandatory minimums for other things. Let's make mandatory minimums for fentanyl, and let's make murder charges possible if somebody deals in fentanyl and the end user dies. The emphasis here is let's get some teeth in the game with the person actually dealing the drug. Let's not just make it, hey, you dealt the drug, or if you caught me, or whatever. Let's figure out a way technologically through cell phones or whatever means they're using to communicate, find the actual dealer. And if the worst is to befall the person that's actually the end user, that person gets charged with murder.
Absolutely. And people try to distract this and say there's innocent bystanders. That is, and they look for off-ramps, and the judges have off-ramps. And these drug dealers, they weren't really drug dealers. All that is not what we want. That is going to fall right into the cartels and the drug dealers. They're going to look for these weaknesses. They're going to look for these off-ramps, and they're going to leverage those. So don't give them those off-ramps. You got 250 pills. We got you. You're going 3 years. We got you. And then that will be clear. So we talked about this before. The risk will go up. The cost will go up. All these things, that's fine. If you want to get fentanyl, go to Oregon. It's going to be a whole new thing, but it's not going to be in Idaho. And we can close it down and protect our communities. So always remember, what is the final end state? You got little Joey going to a party, he's 17 years old, and someone gives him some kind of gummy or fentanyl pill, and it kills him. And we talked about over 300, up to 350 last year of these deaths to fentanyl. We don't even count the amount that are saved from these Narcan. There's a whole bunch of folks that have been saved. It's just been on the edge of dying here. And the thing is, reiterate, the fear is it's random. It's Russian roulette. It's not about education's key. It's that one-time user, random. Everybody's vulnerable to this, not just the kids hanging down in the bad places in town. It can happen anywhere. Every family's at risk. Everybody has skin in this game.
Right, and not just the first-time user of fentanyl. It could be somebody who's going to a party and attempting to smoke some legal marijuana that they got from an unknown source, and that's laced with fentanyl. So now you have somebody whose intent wasn't even to engage with pills or fentanyl at all. And because fentanyl is so rampant and so accessible and now lacing other drugs, you have this Russian roulette with the person who's just, and again, I'm not saying smoking pot's a good idea, but you don't anticipate a 17-year-old going to a party smoking pot is going to die from fentanyl, but that's a possibility.
It is. And this is the hard part. And I discussed this. This is part of the interdiction piece. You can't interdict and quantify pot was laced with fentanyl. That's something we can't do with this bill because you can't quantify that. You can, but they've said that you're literally going to have to get the whole 100 pounds of pot and take it through the lab and find out if it met the threshold. They told me that's not going to be workable. The pills are easy. They can take samples. They're very specific from the lab. When it gets into pot and enhancement, very difficult. That's when we need to go to the next level, to the border, and the government locking this down and shutting these cartels down for letting this even get into the country at all, because it can come all these other different products. When we did this confiscation down there in California, they had 50,000 pills, but then they had this big block. It was a fentanyl block, all in cellophane. It was several pounds of just plain fentanyl. That was enough fentanyl to kill everyone in the country. So, you have to be, how precise is that when they start enhancing whatever they're doing? Yeah, right. Super dangerous. That was interesting to see that. I had that, I gave that to you in my picture, that big old block of fentanyl. Like, wow, that was worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. I think it was probably $1 million in this case, that chunk of fentanyl.
So we have the fentanyl issue. Then we have the school security bill. Talk to me about the school security bill.
School security, this is another bill that is getting a lot of attention. And I had a lot of constituents ask me, what can we do to make our schools safe? We talked about, hey, we need to have guards. Guards are great. That's the solution. 2 guards per school. Got to have trained people. It's going to cost a fortune. Couldn't do it. It's not going to happen. People offered, say, hey, what if parents go ahead and provide money? All that, no, that's not going to be sustainable. So the best solution was to remove the sheep's pen from the school. In that case, the signs that say, hey, gun-free zone, stop that, remove the signs, turn the schools into Second Amendment zones. If people are willing and able and can pass the concealed carry permit, they can carry weapons on the school. That will be all, we can track this, the principal will know, and we have people on the school grounds that are qualified and ready to defend if that happens. So that is a great solution. It's the best fill because we can do it immediately. So you have this concealed weapon permit, enhance, go to the training. They can be in these classrooms. The intent is not for these people to go engage and chase this guy down in the hallway. The police are concerned about that. But the police do understand, and all the police I spoke to, they don't stop these shootings. This is what everyone must understand. Anybody says, well, this is up to the police. It is not. This shooting is over. The police come. By the time they get there, it could be 5, 7, 10 minutes. They're not going to engage until they have some situational awareness. It might be 15 minutes. This thing is over in 5. Someone goes in that school, they can shoot the school up in 10 minutes. The police are not going to stop this problem, and they know they're not. So someone has to take control in the school to defend these kids. And everyone says, what's the most valuable thing you can think of? My children. And we don't even defend it. We defend our banks. We defend everything. We can't even defend our schools. So every crazy person who wants to go in there and throw a pipe bomb or shoot or do whatever, the only way to stop a bad guy is a good guy with a gun, whatever that is. And this is a great solution. This is going to be, I think it's going to be popular. If this ever gets onto the floor, we get it past the committee and some of the concerns, as a Second Amendment state, people are going to go, yeah, this thing will go.
One, couple points here. One, this is not novel or unique. There are plenty of school districts within the state of Idaho that have already put this into place. So they have armed employees on campus. These are people that have gone through very specific training, either with the sheriff's department or other departments. They have their concealed carry, and they have, for instance, identification garments that they put on so that the police don't get them mixed up. But the other thing is, you talk about 5, 6, 7, 10 minutes. Mathematically, I talked to Deputy Gomez about this, and on an episode that's about to get dropped. And in a school shooting situation, every 10 seconds somebody else dies. Mm-hmm. So when you're talking about, like 5 minutes or 6 minutes or 7 minutes, every minute that goes by, statistically, that's 6 more people that are killed. You want the response time to not be 5 minutes. You don't want it to be 1 minute. You want the second something happens, people on campus that are trained and capable of defending the school in some manner available immediately.
Yes.
Because literally every 10 seconds is another life that gets taken.
Absolutely. And, I brought this was like an extreme, but not necessarily when I got a brief where as a terrorist event, if you wanted to control a terrorist event and you could have 10 individuals that were armed with special weapons, could go to 10 schools simultaneously, attack these schools simultaneously at the same time, you wouldn't stop any of them. There would be a mass confusion. No one would know where to go. And if you wanted to do that, it wasn't just this lone crazed shooter, but you were a terrorist. You could go in and shoot the school up, shoot 50 kids, and leave and get away. That was a scenario we described from a terrorist perspective. There's no way to stop that except armed guards. It's the only way it would stop that, because the police are nowhere going to be anywhere near being able to interdict that. And that was terrifying. That's an extreme situation. But the only way you can manage that is, again, if you have, like Eagle is my constituency, and Emmett, and there are very few police. And if there's something going on, you have 2 police that are roaming. If there's one event going on and then a school shooting, then suddenly you got a gap. There's all kinds of reasons why you might not get somebody there in time. It takes a lot of armed individuals, and we use the example of Israel, that they don't have this issue because everyone's armed. Everyone has a gun. We don't want to make our schools an armed camp, but you know what? If you want to make them safe, that's probably what it's going to take. We just have to accept that.
Right. The last piece here, the centralized currency. Now, this is something that I have a lot of friends worry about. The big firearm enthusiasts, they don't want to be tracked in the least about what they're purchasing. And these are law-abiding citizens, right? They don't have any ill intent towards anyone, but they're not interested at all of justifying or explaining why they bought, 2, 3, 4,000 rounds. It is their business, right? They get
Correct.
to be whatever consumer, as long as it's within the bounds of the law, that they want. Talk to me about the centralized currency. And again, the idea that we have a digital currency already, that's not true. We have digital means of sharing and manipulating our dollar, which is paper currency, right? I could go to a bank, say I have $100 in the bank. I can take out $100 of paper money, because that's what our currency is. It's not a completely digital currency. We have credit cards, but the government doesn't own those credit cards. I have Venmo. The government doesn't own my Venmo or my PayPal. And there are laws already in place so that the government can't necessarily monitor these things. But with the digital currency that has been getting kicked around by the Federal Reserve and the federal government, that would all go away. There would be a centralized digital currency that was 100% trackable and 100% manipulatable. Am I getting this correct?
You are correct, and that's the way I understand it. The central bank, and again, they can monitor everything you do. When you read about it, they can actually control processes, control winners and losers, that your money can only buy certain products. You can only do these things. It's full control and full surveillance. And so if it's not full control, and this they can control processes, they'll know exactly what you are doing. So again, the Chinese do this, and if they're controlling not necessarily to that level, but they can monitor everything you do and give you a social score. So in this case, we talk about if you do too much of this, we're not going to let you leave the province because of whatever. We're going to give you a bad loan rate. All these things, you have to have a certain social score. You have to be obedient. Obedience is the key. They can force obedience with this. So the surveillance piece, absolutely. The firearms. We used the example when I did this bill, House Bill 295. This was the credit card companies were trying to track merchant codes. This is why the direction of a bunch of Democrats out of the House, a bunch of anti-gun folks, is we want to monitor where people are buying guns and ammo because we're gonna go after gun traffickers. It was a backdoor way to track behavior of regular law-abiding individuals and tracking totally contrary to the Second Amendment. That bill went through no problem. It was a piece of cake to get that through in this state. And that worked because the banks stopped doing it. The penalties were high. The pushback was high. Florida followed us. We were first. Florida followed us. And then the banks stopped. But this whole digital currency, central bank digital currency, will supersede that. It will be a surveillance on steroids, as they say, surveillance of the authoritarian state. It's going to be great. It's like having a camera in everything you do. We talked about how you're going to get around that. The only way would be by black market. But again, then they can make that huge penalties. Who knows how that would be? You'd buy your firearms by giving them 5 chickens or something like that, so you didn't have to, actually exchange any currency. It would get pretty strange. But everyone should be pretty concerned on what that would do. We talked about ESG. ESG is forcing us to do certain things, buy woke things, do certain things. This would absolutely force us right into that box, very tightly so.
Well, Ted, listen, you got a lot of bills on the table this coming session. It's going to start in a couple weeks. It's exciting to hear. Is there anything that you want besides obviously checking out the Ted Hill channel? I'll put a link on that. Is there anything else that you want the constituents or people of Idaho to know?
I think that we got education. There's lots of things coming up. I'm new to this game. I know that we're coming up on election season, so people are more worried about getting elected. My concern is to get the bills that are right, and I hope we can focus on that. I hope we aren't distracted. Again, I'm a freshman. I hope let's get the bills done. Let's do what's right for the people and not worry about whatever the images are, what we need to do to get reelected. I hope we could get focus on these things and let's get the right thing done. There's a lot of other things coming up. Education will probably be the second biggest one that we're going to run into. Last session, it was property tax. I would say the fentanyl bill is probably the most emotional one because it is literally the line being drawn for law enforcement. Either we're going to be strong on crime or not. That's the real definition of this. And then the school choice bill, what are we going to do? How are we going to solve this problem? People want solutions. And I'm on the education committee. And there's 5 bills at least out there of different solutions. It will be probably the hottest topic in this session will be that education bill.
Gotcha. Well, Again, I hope we can keep connecting throughout the session. I hope that you have some support with these bills. They do seem very, very important. I've spoken with you a lot about them. So thanks for coming on today. I know it's a little bit of a shorter episode. Thanks for what you're doing, and we'll connect soon.
Yes, sir.
This podcast is brought to you by MTU Studios. If you're looking to start a podcast or need content for your business or personal use, content of any type, please reach out to MTU Studios. MTUstudios.com. We'd love to help.